Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings, the living card game. And I'm Dave Walsh, your host.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
Whoa, who is that guy? We have video proof that Grant Thompson is not just a voice or a bot, but he's a real person. Look at that guy.
You kind of get this handsome.
Yeah. Right. It's really cool that there's a live picture of you here. This will be good. So, but let's get talking about today's card. Today's card is Gandalf, who is a neutral hero. He's got a threat cost of 14, and I think that that's the most threat cost of any hero, and he's got threes all across the board for willpower, for attack strength and defense strength, and he's got 5 hit points, and he's got this unique ability which allows him to play with the top card of your deck face up, and when you do that, you can play that card as if it were in your hand, and when doing so, Gandalf has all 4 spheres icons. So that means you can play that top card from any sphere using Gandalf. So in essence, he is a very powerful card, which I would expect Gandalf to be. But I think he's also a little nichey. But anyways, I will go there and I'll defer to Grant. Grant, what do you think of Gandalf, the hero Gandalf?
The hero version of Gandalf, when he first came out, I wasn't overly impressed. I mean, he had that ability, which was, before I learned all the little traits about Gandalf, it was like, I can see where it's coming from, but it wasn't my cup of tea. But then when paired with other cards like Elrond and Vilya and Wizard Pipe, you can then start to manipulate your deck in such a way to get the best use out of Gandalf. The problem that I mainly had with him is because he is a neutral hero, he can't be used to pay for cards in your hand that aren't neutral unless you load them up with, like, say, the Song of Wisdom, the Song of Travel, the Song of Kings, and the Song of Battle, to give them all the lore spheres. If the card's on top of your deck, it's great. But if it's not, you then got to think, well, how am I going to play that? That's why Elrond and Vilya come in so well in Wizard Pipe. But Wizard Pipe's a one-turn use. And Vilya can only be used once a round. So you've got to pick your targets wisely. Now, Gandalf, for his stat baseline, is amazing. Obviously, he's got 3s across his board, which make him the most versatile of most heroes, having those stats of 3. And having 5 hit points means he can take archery damage or direct damage without fear of being crippled. Combining them with Shadowfax, also not a bad idea. The same with Wizard Staff. But, like I say, he does have a lot of niche about him. I love the artwork for his card. He's like, yeah, I'm Gandalf, what about it? And the quote that they've got printed on the card that reads, I am the servant of the secret fire, wielder the flame of Arno, is probably one of my favorite quotes of Gandalf.
Well, that comes right at like an awesome time in the right there at the bridge of Khazad-dûm, right?
Yeah, right on the bridge of Khazad-dûm, right when he's taunting the Balrog, and it's just like, yeah, and that's what that artwork's like. Yeah, what you gonna do about it?
Right. For me, I really enjoy Gandalf because there are a couple of ways you can use a good harvest if you wanted to. That allows you to pay without a resource match. But I find that Gandalf is really good because having that other card in your hand, not that the card that's on top of your deck is considered to be in your hand, but when you think about it, Gandalf has that card and you're able to play it as if it were in your hand. So having that extra card helps, and kind of being able to pick and choose what's going on into your hand helps a lot. So cards like Expert Treasure Hunter, where you can, as soon as you complete the quest, you're allowed to name a card type and then pull it into your hand. Because now you can see the top card in your hand and you can pull it into your hand. Or if it's something like Hidden Cache or Eredluin Miner, you don't want it in your hand. You may want to discard it, and then you can get rid of it and then trigger it that way. So I found that combo is really good, and I don't feel like when I play Gandalf, I don't feel like it's too much of the shenanigans, because that shenanigans thing, where you have to pull out 17 cards and you're trying to set up this awesome combo. Like, I don't think that Expert Treasure Hunter is necessarily too much shenanigans. And then, you can always pull those cards into your hand. Anyways,
Absolutely.
like, you're not just using it for the Hidden Cache and the Eredluin Miner. So there's a lot of ways and a lot of things that you can do. And then, but coupled with good harvest, I just think that Gandalf has a lot of bang for your buck. And then, with the staff and with, like you said, the ring, there's just a lot of good things going on with Gandalf. The downside for me is, guess what I'm going to say the downside for me is?
Well, first of all, I never mentioned anything about Nenya.
Well, right, Nenya is the ring that I was talking about, I guess, because that's his ring.
Well, it's actually Kiadan's ring, but it can go on Gandalf as well. But yes, he does have a lot of shenanigans that can go with them, but I find that in larger Stargaze that also works very well with Gandalf, because that way you can structure your deck the same as Gildor and Glorian. If you're running with Gandalf, you can use his ability to rotate the top 3 cards of your deck, put one into your hand, put one back, and reorder them. So they also come in very handy.
Yeah, and so I think it depends. Gandalf depends on if you're going to be running, like what your other 2 heroes are. If you're running a lore, maybe Elfstone is the card to bring in here with. Even though I'm not a big fan of Elfstone, but it could help us out. So I think that the downside for me, Gandalf, like, I like that he can kind of go through the deck really quickly. You can do all sorts of things with the Ziggle Miner and things like that, but it's all about picking which heroes you're going with. The downside that I have with Gandalf, I guess for people who have watched Card Talk for a long time, is I just have a really hard time starting with 14 threat. I can have 3 heroes out for 14 threat, while it's not Gandalf, but I can have 14 threat with 3 heroes and start the game in secrecy, as opposed to starting with Gandalf and then and then I feel like I'm mitigating my threat the whole time, and I almost feel like I have to run a spirit hero to have access to the threat reduction.
But with Gandalf, you don't need that. As you've already said, he plays for any sphere from the top card of his deck. So you could have Galadrim's Greeting for him to play from the top of your deck. So in a sense, you don't need that running of the spirit. But as you say, you don't generally like to start with a high threat. But in some cases, having a high threat allows a deck with a low threat to keep on chugging away at low threat things. You have a deck with a high threat cost, you can engage your stuff, while a deck with a low threat can maybe do some of like the more heavier questing parts, while a deck with a higher threat can just bring it down all the enemies and just bash them that way. It's one of the many tactics that you can use.
Here's the problem I have with what you said about the Galadrim's Greeting and having that in your hand, even though Gandalf can play it, is that when you have that in your deck, you can only play that off the top of your deck if you're not running a spirit hero. So it seems like wasted card slots for something very specific that's going to come up. I get that you're always going to have a card on top of your deck, but you can only play one of those per phase, so you can't keep playing those cards off and off and off the top of your deck. So that's why when I play Gandalf, and I don't play Gandalf all the time because he just has too high of a threat cost for me, but when I do play him, I always couple him with the Spirit Sphere hero, so that I can use those threat reductions like the Galadrim's Greeting all the time. I'm not stuck with just using him just on the top of the deck or using those cards on the top of the deck. And then I feel like Gandalf is such a beast otherwise, that coupling him with like lore to have access to the healing is really good. And that's where the Elrond coupling comes in with, because he's lore sphere and you can couple, you can definitely, use the healing there. So
I'd agree with what you're saying, but with, say, running Wizard Pipe, you can then decide what you're going to do if you couple them, because you can exhaust Wizard Pipe and trade one card from your hand to the top of your deck. So you get to pick which card you use that once per phase action for. I wouldn't say ability because of the fact that it seems wrong, but it's an action to use the top card of your deck and use Gandalf to pay for it. So that's the way I define it. But yes, as an actual fact, it is sort of a dead slot. But it's something you have to think about when you're building a deck. What do you want to use Gandalf for? What do you want that deck to become, and how you want to deal with it? Obviously, if you're running, say, a high threat deck with Gandalf, and you're not running any threat reduction, it's obvious that you're just doing that to pump out either a load of allies or deal out a load of damage. If you've got some threat reduction there, you'd probably want that because you could end up threatening out.
So what about Gandalf? Is there anything else that you have about Gandalf, or do we ring him?
I'll say we'll ring his neck.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so Grant, if you were going to ring Gandalf on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is the one card to rule them all, and 10 is the trash bin, where's Gandalf going to fall?
At the minute, I'm sitting at a 6 rings because, like I say, I haven't played with him all that much, but I am looking at building a deck with him. So 6 rings seems a fair rating to me because his ability is only once per phase. Yeah, if you could use his ability more than once in your planning phase, so that you could play the top card of your deck, then use it again for play the next card, then I wouldn't have so much of an issue with it. But with this current terminology, it's a bit glitchy for my liking. How about yourself, David?
I like Hero Gandalf. I think he's thematic. I think, everything about him. I'm not even upset that his threat is 14. I think that matches who he is. The problem that I have is that I am just never going to start a game with one character that has 14 threat. I shouldn't say never, but I very rarely will do it. In that same vein, I just can't get behind this version of Gandalf. Almost as much as I like the ally version, I'm just not that big of a fan of the hero version. So I think I would have to give Gandalf 8 rings. Not because I dislike his character, it's just that I think that this card isn't used as often for me.
And next time, join us for Denethor. the low hero from the core set.
Okay, everybody, have a great day.